Good afternoon, and welcome to the second in our series of webinars on engaging conservation psychology for effective action. Today, our topic is applying conservation psychology theories and principles, and we're delighted to have two of our past participants from the Conservation Psychology Institute with us to share about how they're applying what they learned at the Institute to their professional practice. So after a brief introduction, each of today's presenters will talk about specific projects that they worked on at the Institute or that were informed by the work they did at the Institute. We'll have with us Amy Wiedenthal, who's Director of Community Conservation and Education for Audubon, Pennsylvania, and Dr. Kim Langmaid, who's Founder, Vice President, and Director of Sustainability and Stewardship Programs for Walking Mountain Science Center. Let's see, I think that's in Colorado, in the Rocky Mountains. Before we get started, I just want to give a quick plug for the Conservation Psychology Institute. The Institute is a 4-day series of presentations, workshops, and working groups where practitioners come together with researchers to learn about current research and how they can engage it in their own practice. It's a very collaborative, action-oriented time together. This institute in June will be held at Antioch University, New England in Keene, New Hampshire. And you can follow the website to look at who the Conservation Psychology Institute faculty will be this summer. It's a really great time. It takes a big commitment, I know, to get away from your work to do this, but for a limited time we have a discount code to get the early bird rate for this, and we also give a discount to people who come as part of a teams. We really encourage people to bring a project with them and to work on it in the Institute. It's a great way not only to learn, but to have some dedicated time to work with your staff and co-workers on an issue, network with other people in the field. So just some logistics about today's webinar. You should be connected upon entering the webinar. You don't need to call in, and you're automatically muted. Our support person, the CPI coordinator, Terry, is standing by, so you can always use the chat or raise your hand or use Q&A if you're having a problem and need some support. We're recording today's presentation, and we'll send out a link to the recording and also post it to our website along with today's slides. We encourage you to ask questions about the presentation. Please use the chat section and select to all panelists when you type in your question so that everybody can see and participate in answering the questions. Here's an outline of today's webinar. After these introductions, we'll have a presentation by Amy Wiedenthal first, and then by Kim Langmaid, then some time for audience questions. We hope that you'll take the exit survey at the end of this. We'd like to get better at what we do, and your feedback is really important to us. Overall, we'll take less than an hour. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Thank you so much, Joy, for that introduction. Sorry, hold on, let me get to my first slide. So I'm Amy Wiedenthal, and I attended the Conservation Psychology Institute actually twice at Antioch, both in 2014 and 2015, and I'm also in Antioch University's Environmental Studies PhD program. First I want to share a little bit about who I am, what I do, and then how I've applied learning from attending the Conservation Psychology Institute to our environmental education program, both our one of our after-school programs, and through developing and installing natural playgrounds. So first, to just start off, I'm the Director of Community Conservation and Education for National Audubon Society. I'm based in our state office in Pennsylvania. I've worked for Audubon for nearly 20 years, both in Maryland and in Pennsylvania. I was the state director, and now I get to oversee all of our conservation and education programs. Some of you may be familiar with Audubon. It's more than a 100-year-old conservation organization. We focus primarily on bird conservation, although we use birds as really a portal into as an indicator of overall environmental health. So we use that as a way to engage people in conservation action. And so our approach is really through 3 portals, which are really intersected and interact science, education, and advocacy. And again, our focus has really been engaging people in conservation. So I'm on the left pointing up at a bird up in a tree with some students in the city of York. And I have an ecology background, so I did, my undergrad was in biology and I studied ecology. And I have spent the last almost 20 years really working on the people engagement piece of conservation, the human dimension aspects of conservation, and that's what I've really become passionate about is, without, I truly believe that to have, conservation and environmental success, we must have a broader and more engaged citizenry. But how do we do that? Right, that's the challenge. That's probably why many of us are on this webinar today, is to pick up ways and how to really deeply engage and mobilize more people around caring about this planet. So human behaviors are, complex and unpredictable, but really by applying the principles and theories of conservation psychology, we can better understand and solve issues related to the human aspects of conservation and start to deeply explore the relationships between people and nature. So just as a quick definition of conservation psychology, it's a study of the reciprocal relationships between humans and nature with a particular focus on encouraging conservation of the natural world. So from after attending the Conservation Psychology Institute and being a practitioner as an environmental educator, I started to look at the literature within conservation psychology as well as sort of best practices and effective programs within the environmental education arena. And so when you bring these 2 bodies of literature together, you really look at effective environmental education programs that really promote pro-environmental awareness, attitudes, intent to act, and intent to behave in certain ways that are environmentally benefit. And so as some of you who may be environmentalists or environmental educators on the webinar may already have these integrated into your programs, but thinking about, the duration and effective education programs that really move beyond just knowledge gained and awareness and start to get at that attitude and intent to act. Longer duration, so providing multiple repeat experiences that are in unstructured play and activities that really build those emotional connections for the individual. The hands-on, experiential, interactive learning experiences with also that real-world aspect and relevancy is really critical at making effective environmental education programs. The frequent experiences, again, that duration, the repetition, having repeat experiences, and having that place-based exploring and learning. Involving students actively and provide practice and action is really critical. So providing them a chance to be student-driven, peer-to-peer learning, making community connections where you're, again, that helps with the real world and the relevancy, but your interaction with community members and your immediate neighbors. The supportive role model piece is really adult role models and mentors is a big component. A lot of Louise Chawla's significant life experience has looked at the importance that adult role models, which can be family, but are often, can be teachers or educators, and their role and importance in providing this life path towards conservation. And also having the opportunity for students of all ages to practice skills that they've developed, build competency and autonomy. So when I start to take all those pieces and start to apply it to some of our on-the-ground programs, one I wanted to highlight, because we only have a little bit of time to share some of our programs, I wanted to highlight our after-school program, where we've really tried to take a lot of those, a lot of the research and theories within conservation psychology and apply it to a particular program. So we have an after-school environmental club called Green Club, which meets weekly. It's targeted for 8th through 12th grade, so a lot of programs are offered, especially after-school programs, are offered to younger students, and we really wanted to grab that middle and high school age. We have about 20 to 25 students enrolled in our program. So we meet weekly, and this is really key so that it's not during the school day. It's after school hours for an hour and a half to 2 hours that we meet every week with the students. So we go to the school, and it's very much a club feel, so the students get a chance to interact with each other. We also have special guests that come and participate in the program. It's throughout the whole school year. We have occasional weekend events and field trips. The students get to participate in activities that Audubon does in other locations. They get to get their hands into additional programs off their school grounds as well. And it's we've done this over multiple years so that students get to participate year after year. We've actually now had students who have gone on to college, and they've come back and shared their experience with the current club members, which is really exciting, kind of long-term connection with these students. So a big part of this is that it's student-driven. So at the beginning of the year, students identify, we have lots of discussion about particular projects that they may want to work on throughout the year. We compile lists and revisit that throughout the school year, and they tend to focus on one large project that they want to implement that has a benefit to their school or to the immediate neighborhood where the school is located. And this is really project-based, so it's student-driven. They decide what they want to do, how they want to do it. Of course, Audubon staff help guide that process and direct them and support them, but it really is student-driven with relevancy in what they want to do and how it will help and benefit their own community. Students, so not only are we providing them knowledge and content and increased connection with the environment, but it also is a really social experience for the students. They're multiple ages, so they're kids that not necessarily in the same class every day, and they get to have a lot of peer-to-peer learning. Some of our 12th graders almost end up being more of a mentor to the younger grades. And that's a really important piece. We always allow plenty of time for them to have fun and socialize and still be productive and effective during the time that we're together. And really building those, building competency and developing skills that they can practice throughout the year is really critical. And the community connection is really essential. So we have at the end of the school year, we have students basically showcase their work to both the school community as well as the neighbors. So a lot of the neighbors, there's a lot of interaction between the neighbors and the students, and the schoolyard where many of the projects have focused on basically greening this one strip of mowed lawn that's next to their school grounds. And they've transformed that mowed lawn into habitat for birds and pollinators. And so the students really share their knowledge with the neighbors and community, and to be able to make those community connections is really a critical component of this program. So I had mentioned in the beginning that I'm working on my PhD at Antioch, and I'm really exploring something called social practice theory, and it's all about the action piece and that social connections. And so I just wanted to put up this sentence or two sentences here just to get you guys thinking about, the fact that educators provide information, but we need to take people to that next level, and educators really need to provide opportunities for individuals to learn about, through, and from action. And that's a really critical component of our after-school program. So I'm going to totally switch gears to a very younger age. And highlight one other program where we're applying conservation psychology into our work, and that's the development of natural playgrounds. This, as many of you probably are aware, the research findings have shown that kids are spending less time outdoors, they have less connection with nature, and this leads to many, many negative consequences, including, reduced physical health, even mental health, lack of knowledge about nature, and those emotional connections to the natural world. So how do we start to combat some of that and create opportunities that parents and adults can feel that their kids can explore and enjoy nature in a safe setting? And one way to do that is through these natural playgrounds, you know, where you take a designated and managed area and you allow children to be able to, you know, manipulate natural objects and elements and materials and explore habitat and incorporate a lot of their sensory and fine motor skills as well as gross motor skills also. So at the Audubon Greenwich Center in Connecticut, they've recently put in a natural playground, and their center director attended the Conservation Psychology Institute with me a few years ago, and this has been a huge success. It has only been open for really the fall season. It was open in the winter, but you know, it doesn't get as much visitation, and they've already had a huge increase in admission to their center because people want to use this natural playground. And for me here in Pennsylvania, we are building a new natural playground that's really following the life of a bird. So students, young children can experience kind of egg to all the way to fledging and fly off on a swing. And it gives an opportunity for children to explore, play, build, use their imagination. In addition, we have at both places, you know, really opportunity for that intergenerational play. So parents and children and grandparents and grandchildren can all interact and play with the natural area in a fun and productive way, as well as, again, from the parents' viewpoint, really to be able to have that safe place for kids to explore. We've even created opportunities and places for, you know, adults to be able to gather and still see their children, so the kids can have a lot of free play and unstructured and feel like they're totally on their own, even though their parents can see them from a little distance away. And those are all important pieces for those kids to be able to emotionally and physically connect with the natural world. So we've applied, oh, I'm sorry, I have another slide. So this is just an example of some of the elements that we're putting into our playground with bird nests. And again, ours is about following sort of the bird's life from egg to egg all the way to fledging, so that they get to fly off, feel that experience of flying away from the nest. So we've been able to apply a lot of our various findings from the conservation psychology literature to our work, but I wanted to just highlight a few examples of how we've directly put those into our programs. And so I'm now going to turn it over to Kim.
Okay, thanks so much, Amy. We're just taking a minute to transition from Amy's slides to Kim's slides, and you'll see Kim's screen come up momentarily. Just want to remind folks, if you have questions as we go along, please feel free to type them into the chat area, and then we'll get to those at the end. But as they come up to you, feel free to just type them in, and we'll keep track of them and kind of read them out in the order that they're given. All right, take it away, Kim.
All right, thank you, Joy. And Amy, I love the examples you have shared. I am speaking to all of you from the mountains of Colorado, where it is spring. The mountain bluebirds have arrived, the buttercups are blooming, and the aspen leaves are coming, and we still have snow. Walking Mountain Science Center was founded in 1997 as an outcome of my master's project from Prescott College. We are in the Eagle Valley of Colorado, and we're really serving the rural mountain resort communities of Vail and Beaver Creek and others located throughout the Eagle River Valley. These are international destination ski areas, and we're also surrounded by the White River National Forest. It's the most visited national forest in the country. Due to increasing pressures and population growth, there's a lot of impacts on the natural resources and wildlife around us. And so Walking Mountain Science Center was really designed to reach everyone in the community, youth and adults, to educate people about the natural world around them. We have 3 program areas. our youth programs, which partner with the local schools and also summer science camps, community programs, which are interpretive programs serving the general public, and then our sustainability and stewardship programs, which are more action-focused, including energy efficiency, waste reduction, sustainable business, climate action, and landscape stewardship. Our mission is to awaken a sense of wonder and inspire environmental stewardship and sustainability through natural science education. And in order to best fulfill our mission and maximize its impact, we truly do need to learn from and incorporate the research and best practices from conservation psychology. The two broad outcome areas of conservation psychology are number one, encouraging people to care about the natural world and their role in it, and motivating people to act in more environmentally friendly ways. Conservation psychology is value-driven because it focuses on the benefits of protecting the natural world. And so the research findings from conservation psychology are extremely important to Walking Mountain Science Center's mission in terms of helping our staff understand how to best design and facilitate educational experiences that truly do, in fact, awaken a sense of wonder and empower people to take an active role in environmental stewardship and sustainability. I wear many hats in my role here at Walking Mountain Science Center. That's me with the red hat, and I'm there with a group of volunteers and partners from the Forest Service. In addition to my work at Walking Mountain Science Center, I also teach in the Sustainability Studies program at Colorado Mountain College and serve as a graduate student mentor at the Prescott College Master of Arts program and PhD program in Sustainability Education. So really, the research from conservation psychology supports all of my various roles and helps me, I would say, stay at the top of my professional game in creating positive change in the world around me. So for this presentation, I am just really going to touch on a few of the projects that I have worked on over the past 6 months since I attended the Conservation Psychology Institute last October at the Teton Science School's Murie Ranch in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. A spectacular place. The faculty there were incredible, and I continue to be inspired by all that I have learned there. There was a vast amount of information covered during that Conservation Psychology Institute, so I'm just going to touch on a couple of examples, and there are many more possibilities which I will continue to work on over the course of my career, I'm sure. So for this webinar, I'm going to touch on the Climate Action Plan, which I've been working on over the past year and a half, and that was my focal project during the Conservation Psychology Institute. I'm also going to talk briefly about our community programs, which are those interpretive programs with the public, and our graduate program, where we offer a Master of Science education in conjunction with the University of Northern Colorado. I'm going to mention several articles, and I'm going to provide you a list of those articles and citations at the end of the presentation. So the Climate Action Plan is a project I've been working on over the past year and a half with stakeholders throughout the community. And one of our instructors at the Conservation Psychology Institute said something that was very profound for me. Very simple and very profound, but she said, behavior is very complex. And as I work on the Climate Action Plan and the stakeholders and the communities surrounding me, there's a lot to keep in mind in terms of this complexity and moving people through the stages of change to pro-environmental actions. I guess there are these three areas that have been really illuminating and helpful for me, and that is thinking about the human dimensions of action, and in the next slide I'm going to touch on that. Luis Chawla shared that with us. Also the stages of change that people go through moving toward pro-environmental behaviors. And then also another one of our fantastic conservation psychology faculty shared with us her research on using the trans-theoretical model of change, and that's Dr. Abby Abrash-Walton, and she researched organizational leaders' change process as they move to divest organizations from fossil fuel investment. That's really relevant to me because I'm also working with leaders of other organizations, local governments, utilities, business, education institutions, and so I found that very helpful to me in thinking about how to move people through change. This is the model that Louise Chawla shared during the Conservation Psychology Institute, and really helpfully, nicely shows the complexities involved in the human dimensions of action for the environment. And as I work with my stakeholders in the Climate Action Plan, I am constantly thinking of these 4 domains across the top here: knowledge, sense of efficacy, action, goals, and outcome, and really thinking about how to move people along and to address all of these domains. For knowledge, it's not only knowledge of the environmental issues we face, but also knowledge about how to take action and what those skills entail. In terms of self-efficacy, people need to be motivated. We need to touch on their values and show them the benefits of taking action and give them a belief and opportunity to take action and to execute action. Next, in terms of action, we realize there are constraints and opportunities, and so we need to address those. And then for goals and outcomes, we really need to highlight the tangible gains that will occur as a result of taking action. So this is very helpful in thinking about designing any type of environmental program that strives to engage people in action for the environment. And as a facilitator, I am constantly aware of all of these domains and trying to address them in the design of my meetings and the processes that I put forth to engage people in the Climate Action Plan. At this stage in the Climate Action Plan, the stakeholder groups are working in smaller working teams represented by these icons, and I feel as though we're continuing to sort of deepen in those 4 domains of action, and the stages of change are still relevant as these smaller working groups address education and outreach, waste diversion, commercial energy efficiency, residential energy efficiency, transportation, mobility, and energy supply. Now moving into the next example I want to share with you is our community programs. And these programs are really the face of our organization out in the community and communicating with the general public. We offer almost thousands of programs each year to people who visit the ski areas, participate in activities on the mountain in the summer, and who visit our various Nature Center, Discovery Center, and Science Center. And so we have looked at some of the best practices in terms of communicating about climate change. And there's a really helpful article that I discovered through the Conservation Psychology Institute, a 2015 article titled "Improving Public Engagement with Climate Change, 5 Best Practice Insights from Psychological Science" by van der Linden, Maybach, and Liserowitz. And it really simplifies some of the strategies that we can use to communicate effectively about climate change. And these are just some examples of how we have talked with our frontline interpreters about how they can best communicate with the general public. Lately, in the past 6 months, they've been getting many, many more questions about climate change and people probing them for their thoughts and opinions about climate change. So here on this slide, we touch on one salient point about climate change and helping people understand the science of it in terms of greenhouse gases becoming a thick blanket that covers our atmosphere or thickens the atmosphere, and therefore the Earth gets warmer. So the idea of greenhouse gases being a blanket is important. And then telling people the most direct solution is to decrease emissions by burning less fuel. Also touching on some of the very local relevant science that we have and the impacts that are happening all around us all the time. So here in the Rocky Mountains, our winters are getting warmer and shorter. We have 23 fewer freezing days than we did in the early 1980s. Our summers are getting hotter and drier. We have declining runoff in our rivers. We have more extreme weather events, and the insects are changing the mountain forests all around us. And now this pie graph on the right has also been shown to be one of the most effective in communicating that there is scientific consensus that current climate change is caused by humans, and the pie chart shows that 97% of scientists agree that climate change is caused by human fossil fuel burning. So there's a lot more that our community programs can do to incorporate lessons from conservation psychology. We've only really just scratched the surface here, but these are a couple of really relevant and useful examples right now. So next I'm going to touch on our graduate programs, and this is a program where we work with graduate fellows who are earning a Master of Science education from University of Northern Colorado. They take classes both from our faculty here at Walking Mountain Science Center and online courses through University of Northern Colorado. And these graduate educators are primarily teaching our youth programs. So these are programs for kids in kindergarten through high school, and also our summer science camps primarily for elementary and middle school students. So in one of their recent courses called The History and Theory of Environmental Education, we spent several sessions talking about conservation psychology and how it can inform their work as educators and in designing curricula and programs and instructional strategies for the youth that they work with. Going back to what Amy mentioned, how do we engage youth in learning about action or why action is needed, learning through action, actually giving the kids hands-on experiences, and also learning from action, providing opportunities for youth to reflect on their learning and then ways to apply it, all while incorporating developmentally appropriate learning experiences, first connecting the younger kids to nature and making them feel a part of it and appreciation for the natural world, and then upping the ante in terms of their sense of responsibility as they get older, and that's what educator David Sobel at Antioch calls the ladder of responsibility. And so we spent time working on one local environmental issue and applying all of the different theories in terms of engaging people in environmental action and the ladder of responsibility, and developing a sequence of programs for youth throughout kindergarten to 8th grade in what they might experience for most effective programming. So that sums it up for me. I know I went quickly, and those are just a few examples. There are many, many more opportunities, as I suggested. Here are some of the references that I touched on throughout the presentation, and I found them very useful. There are many, many more available, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to participate, and I really value the network and community of practice that the Conservation Psychology Institute has provided for me, and I look forward to continuing to learn and engage with all of you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thanks a lot, Kim. That was really wonderful. As somebody who works as an educator, I have to say that it's always really gratifying to see what people do with what they've learned, whether it's in a Conservation Psychology Institute or in a graduate program here. So really exciting for me to be part of this today, too. Let me just get us back to maybe another screen with some information on it for you. So I guess if I do this, I won't be able to see the questions, but we're going to go to the question and answer section now. And so if you have a question to address, then you can type it into the chat box. I'm wondering, Terry and panelists, if I leave this slide up, if somebody else would read the questions, or if you'd like me to switch to our program screen and ask the questions from there.
So I'd be happy to read the questions that I'm seeing in chat. There's one from Megan Jones. This is to all panelists. It says, how do you measure the impact of your work in terms of changes in behavior, attitudes, values, etc., among participants, or in terms of positive changes to the environment? So
great question.
Yeah.
Maybe Amy and Kim could each take a turn to address how they evaluate programs, and then I can say a little bit more about our approach through CPI and what we try to provide there.
Sure. So this is Amy. I can go first. We assess our programs in a variety of different ways, depending on which program. So I'm going to focus this on sort of our youth programs, just because that's what I highlighted. So we do a variety of pre and post program assessments. So most of our educational programs with school children are multiple interactions with them throughout the school year, both in the classroom as well as out in the field. So we really try to take build a much deeper partnership with a smaller number of students versus a lot more sort of one-day kind of interactions. So we do pre and post with the students themselves, and we ask questions that get at sort of their knowledge gained. So how are we helping the teachers get to that knowledge piece, what they have to learn in the classroom for their standards. But then we also ask questions and do other ways to get at sort of their perceptions of the environment and how that changes, or a particular aspect. For us, we often highlight species of birds or habitat that birds rely on, and how kids' attitudes and perceptions of that space has changed over participation in the program, as well as actions that they identify that they are or intend to do. So we do that through questions, so it's more quantitative, and then we also do, and this is something that I picked up through the Conservation Psychology Institute, has started to do more free write and drawing, and that really works really well for younger students, as well as actually all of our ages, so that we're able to really get a handle on sort of what their concept of the natural world or a particular place is, or species, and how that evolves and changes over time. So we do, one example is we have students from a small city in York go to a park, and it's a park that they've used quite a bit, but there's an endangered species of birds that nest there, and so the kids aren't really connected to those birds until they participate in the program. So we have them do drawings on what their perception is of and what they think about that particular park, and how that changes throughout their participation in their program. So we do a whole variety of different ways. We also do focus groups and interviews. Yeah, I'm happy to dive deeper into any of that, but I'll pass it over to Kim so she can also highlight what they are doing.
Thanks, Amy. Well, I'd say similar to your approach at Audubon, we have a variety of different tools that we use to evaluate and measure the effectiveness of our programs, just depending on the type of program. So, for example, with our youth programs, and particularly the programs that partner with the local schools and do field science programs that complement their in-school classroom curricula, we do pre- and post-assessments to understand students' the effectiveness of the programs in terms of students' understanding of scientific concepts and their sense of care and appreciation for the natural world. We also do evaluations with our chaperones and teachers that participate in our youth programs, And in our community programs, we do shorter, quick surveys from the people who visit our various centers and interact with our interpretive staff. And then for our sustainability and stewardship programs, again, it depends on the type of program. But for example, with our energy efficiency program, we have used a third-party social scientist to do outreach calls. We have used a survey of people at zero waste events to understand their impressions of how to more successfully compost and recycle. And we report our landscape stewardship outcomes in terms of the number of acres of land that we have restored or monitored, and the impact of the learning experience on the interns who do that work. So again, I would say there's a variety of different tools that we use, and we do have an organizational program evaluation committee where we get together regularly and discuss how we can continually improve in this realm. And in particular, is there a way we can roll up all of the work that we're doing in all of these different programs to better understand our impact across the community?
Thanks a lot, Kim. Yeah, just a great question, and just briefly about the approach that we take in the Conservation Psychology Institute. And it's great to hear questions about evaluation, because we want people to design their programs with evaluation in mind. And so if you look at the outline for the coming CPI, for example, you'll see that we have almost a day and some working sessions devoted to this issue. One of them has to do with how do we define behavior, how do we define the changes we want to see. And so really thinking with your program committee about what is it that we expect for outcomes, and how do we direct our program design to achieve those, how do we get feedback on what's succeeding and what's not. And then keep in mind that that is a process of feedback, a loop where we use that information to continually improve that. So our instructors for that, Libby McCann, who's on the faculty here, and Joy Kubarek, who works for Peer Associates, which is associated with our psychology department, really are skilled in Okay, sorry for that. Apparently my audio was dropped and I wasn't aware of it. Let's move on to another question. Is there information on using social practice theory with adults? Amy, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, there is lots of literature within social practice theory. So I've primarily focused on Dorothy Holland's work, and it really looks at that individual, becoming aware of environmental issues, building the skills to do that, and then acting on those skills, so practicing those skills, and then the sort of final stage is to, or it's not the final stage, but sort of that movement on that continuum is to share that with other people, so that social aspect. So there's been a lot of literature. Dorothy Holland has looked at a lot within activism. Environmental activism is sort of the focus that she's taken. So there's been a lot within the adult population. So if you do a search within social practice theory and Holland, you can find some more literature and some of her research. And my email is on the slide, so feel free, whoever asked that question, you can email me as well. I'm happy to give you those references, those citations.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. This is something that I bring into the class I teach on conservation psychology after having students work for 6 or 7 weeks on a behavior change of their own and learn about the different factors that influence behavior and various theories. I really begin to challenge their assumption that this is the best way is an individual approach. We have a tendency, particularly in this environmental studies department, to think that we've got to get people's hearts, minds, and souls first, and then their behavior will change. And what I like about social practice theory is that it really looks at values and practice as co-constructive. After all, what we want to do is change people's behavior. And so I assigned several articles that do studies that report on research that's been done in organizations where things like recycling practices or energy-saving practices have been adopted and encouraged in an office setting, and then examine the adoption of those behaviors and whether and how the values change. And so it is really interesting research, and I like this more holistic perspective. Amy, there's a bunch of questions about the Green Club. Let me just read a few of them. One of them is basically where the money comes from, who pays for it, do the students pay some kind of fee, and also how many staff are dedicated to the Green Club program.
Sure. So we do after-school programs in a couple different locations throughout the state, but for the Green Club specifically, it's in Philadelphia, and it is funded through a whole variety of different sources, mostly private foundations. So it is completely subsidized, and the students don't pay anything to participate in that program. They do, like all of our programs, they do have to make a commitment up front to participate throughout the whole year because we are dedicating resources, and plus that empowers the students and gives them responsibility and ownership. So we have really one staff that fully participates in Green Club. So I have one educator who really is the one who thinks about it, organizes it, and is physically working with the students every week, and then we have additional staff that help build, program development and things like that, and assist when there's big projects that the club's taking on. So we, at Audubon, we have kind of that everybody on all hands on board when needed. So some of the larger habitat projects, we need multiple staff involved, but really we have one educator who works with the Green Club every week. And we also have a great relationship with the school. So there's, we have a really strong partnership with the teachers there that help as well, and help with recruitment and get the kids involved. I think, did I miss any other questions about Green Club? So they don't pay, it's free. I think I answered all the questions.
Yeah, that's great. Well, as somebody who's been almost a lifelong contributor to Massachusetts Audubon, I have to just give a plug for all the people out there who support nonprofits, and great for them to know where those kind of donations go. So I think that's it for our questions. If there are any last comments from any of the presenters, I'll give you a minute. If not, then thank you both, Amy and Kim, for your presentations today, and also for the great work that you're doing out there in the community. This is a time when all of us are looking for sources of hope, and your programs really provide that. And thank you to everyone who joined the webinar today, and you'll be able to share this recording with colleagues and coworkers who weren't able to join us today if you found it valuable. Just a reminder to take the exit survey when you close out and give us some feedback. Thank you very much.